Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ivan and I'm a commercial still life photographer. This video is a part of my online jewelry photography course in which I teach professional jewelry photography. So if you are into jewelry photography or commercial photography, please consider subscribing to the channel as I have many new videos coming soon. If you like this video, I will appreciate you hitting that like button, and you have the link to my online jewelry photography course in the description below. Enjoy the video and please let me know in the comments if there is anything that you would like to know regarding jewelry photography, and I will do my best to make some videos on the subject. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Lighting. Photography is all about light. There is no photography without light. Working with light is the most fundamental element in photography. Even the word photography means drawing with light. Same as painters brush paint onto a canvas to create a picture, photographers paint an image by capturing light particles on a light-sensitive medium, whether it is film or a digital sensor. So without light, not a single picture could ever be taken. Lighting is a key factor for creating a successful image. Lighting determines not only brightness and darkness, but also tone, mood, and atmosphere. Therefore, it is necessary to control and manipulate light correctly in order to get the best texture, color vibrancy, and luminosity on your subjects. By distributing shadows and highlights correctly, you can create stylized, professional-looking photographs. Light is all around us. When light hits any kind of surface, it reflects back the properties of that surface. So, in fact, everything we see is reflected light. When we are looking at a flower, for example, we don't actually see the flower, but we see the light that is reflected off of it. Light is a form of energy that travels as waves. Their wavelength determines many of the light's properties. For instance, wavelength accounts for light's color and how it will interact with matter. The range of wavelengths from super short to very long is known as the light spectrum. Humans have evolved to sense a small part of the light spectrum. We know these wavelengths as visible light. Our eyes contain cells in the form of rods and cones. Pigments in those cells can interact with certain wavelengths of light. When this happens, they create signals that travel to the brain. The brain interprets the signals from different wavelengths as different colors. Most of the light spectrum, however, falls outside of that range. A photographic image is created by capturing various amounts of light reflected from the various parts of a scene. Dark objects absorb part of the light and reflect less into the camera, while bright objects reflect more light. This will define the picture's brightness. The colors are defined by the wavelength and frequencies of the reflected light. Objects with different hues reflect light of different wavelengths and frequencies. Knowing how to see the light is a key attribute for a photographer. It's the most fundamental photographic skill, but also the hardest and most time-consuming to learn. Now, you can study and master the various rules of composition and exposure fairly quickly, since today's technology makes it much easier to determine exposure than before. But learning to perceive light generally takes a great deal of time, and only years of practice will lead you to this skill. One of the most important skills a photographer must have is the control of light fall-off. To understand how light falls off, we need to be familiar with the inverse square law. The inverse square law is probably the most significant rule we need to understand as photographers, and it is essential to understanding light fall-off. Light is energy, and as all kinds of energy, its intensity will decrease with time and/or distance. The inverse square law states that intensity equals the inverse of the square of the distance from the source. For example, the intensity of a light's point source gets smaller the further away it is. If the source is 2 times as far away, it's a quarter of the intensity. In other words, every time we double the distance from the light source, we get quarter of the power. Let's try to see that in real life. Here I've placed a light close to the wall so we could see the light fall off. First, we can notice that if I will expose for the actual light source, which is the bulb, we will get a similar effect as if we are taking a picture with the sun in our image, making most of the image black. This is due to the sensor's dynamic range. The sensor can't record all the dark information in the scene, and this is why we get the darkness in the image. We can see that the light falls off very quickly from the light source. This is the inverse square law in action. The intensity of the light is decreasing with the distance from the light source. Next, I've increased the power output of the light. Now we can see that the light source itself is overexposed by the camera. Again, due to the camera's dynamic range. The next thing we can notice is that the light fall-off has also increased by the distance. If I will increase the power once more, we could see that the light fall-off has increased again. Let's look at the distance in comparison to the light intensity. I have divided the image into equal segments of 1 meter each. We can see that each time the light doubles the distance from the light source, it is decreasing by a factor of 4. Every time we double the distance, we get quarter of the light output. This can teach us how to control the light fall-off. When we want to have a small fall-off, we will place the light close to our object. And when we want to have a large fall-off, we will place the light further away from our object. For example, here I have placed a whiteboard. When I place the light close to the board, we get a rapid fall-off and the board is only partially lit. When I move the light away from the board and increase the power output to compensate for the distance, we get the whole board lit evenly. This is the inverse square law, and this is how we control the light spread on our subjects. So as we can see, light is a form of energy and it bounds to the laws of physics. Let's examine one of the most granted sources of light, our sun. Our sun is a 4.5 billion-year-old star, a hot ball of glowing gases. The sun emits lots of radiation in wavelengths that span from X-ray to infrared. Sunlight provides almost all the energy required for life on Earth. Sunlight is a portion of the electromagnetic radiation given off by the sun. Sunlight can be broken down into two major components: visible light, ultraviolet light, and infrared radiation. The sun is about 150 million kilometers from Earth, and it takes about 8 minutes for its light to reach Earth from the surface of the sun, which is amazing when you think of it in relation to the inverse square law. The sun's energy can light our entire planet evenly, and the energy that reaches our planet is only a tiny fraction of the intensity of the light at the source. Try to think about it on a hot summer's day. Without the sun's energy, life as we know it could not exist here on our home planet. Light has several basic properties that can fundamentally influence a photo. They include intensity, color, quality, and direction. There's no such thing as the ideal light for every type of subject. Each photographic genre demands light with different characteristics. If you photograph the same scene with the same composition, but you change the lighting, it will give you an entirely different photo in terms of both aesthetics and meaning. In the next video, we will look at the different characteristics of light, and we will learn about the different types of light sources available. See you in the next video.